The twin moons of Kepler Station hung low in the artificial sky dome as Maya and her younger brother, Leo, played in the observation garden. Their laughter echoed through the metal corridors of the human colony, a sound of innocence that had become rare in the outer territories. Maya was 12 years old, with dark hair like her mother and fierce eyes like her father. Leo was only 8, small for his age but curious about everything that moved through the stars. Their mother had died 3 years ago, during a pirate raid on a cargo vessel. Since then, their father had become something different, something the galaxy whispered about in dark corners and shadowed cantina. Commander Marcus Cole was no ordinary pilot. He was the last of the Starfighters, the elite human warriors who had pushed back the Vexor Dominion during the border wars. His calcinant was ghost because when he appeared in his fighter, enemies simply vanished from existence. But today, Marcus was away on patrol duty near the asteroid belt. The children were under the care of Station Administrator Chen, a kind old woman who let them explore the gardens while she handled her duties. Nobody expected trouble. Kepler Station was deep in protected human space, surrounded by defense satellites and patrol ships. The first sign of danger came as a shadow that blocked out the twin moons. Maya looked up and felt her heart freeze in her chest. Above the dome, massive shapes were descending through the atmosphere shield, ships unlike anything she had seen before. They were organic in appearance, like giant insects made of dark purple chitin and glowing green veins. Each vessel was the size of a small mountain, and there were 7 of them. The Zoroth Armada had arrived. Throughout the galaxy, the Zoroth were known as collectors. They traveled from system to system, taking whatever interested them: technology, resources, living specimens. They had conquered 47 worlds and enslaved billions of beings. Their empire stretched across 3 spiral arms, and their fleet numbered in the thousands. No single species had ever defeated them in open battle. Warning sirens screamed across Kepler Station. Red lights flashed in every corridor. Administrator Chen's voice came through the speakers, ordering immediate evacuation to the underground bunkers. But the Zoroth were faster than anyone expected. Before the colonists could reach safety, beams of green light shot down from the massive ships. They punched through the dome like paper, striking buildings and streets with surgical precision. Maya grabbed Leo's hand and started running. Her brother was crying, confused and terrified by the chaos around them. She pulled him through the garden, past burning trees and shattered fountains, toward the nearest bunker entrance. But something massive landed in front of them, blocking their path. It was a Zoroth soldier. The creature stood 3 meters tall on 6 jointed legs. Its body was covered in natural armor plates, the color of dried blood. 4 arms extended from its torso, each ending in claws that looked sharp enough to cut through steel. Its head was elongated and insectoid, with compound eyes that reflected the flames around them in 1,000 fragmented images. More soldiers landed behind them, surrounding the children in seconds. Maya tried to be brave. She pushed Leo behind her and raised her fists, ready to fight even though she knew it was hopeless. The Zoroth soldier in front of her made a sound that might have been laughter. One of the creatures pulled out a scanning device and waved it over the children. The device beeped rapidly, displaying information in an alien language. The soldiers exchanged clicking sounds with each other, clearly excited about what they had found. Human children were rare prizes. Young humans could be studied, trained or sold to collectors throughout the galaxy. They were valuable because humans were considered dangerous, a species that had clawed its way from a single planet to control 200 systems in less than 3 centuries, a species that had never lost a war. The Zoroth had always avoided direct conflict with the Human Confederation, but they were not afraid of taking easy opportunities. The soldiers restrained Maya and Leo with energy bonds that wrapped around their wrists like glowing snakes. They carried the children toward one of the landing craft that had touched down in the ruined garden. Maya screamed and kicked, but the Zoroth were impossibly strong. Leo called out for their father, his young voice lost in the roar of engines and destruction. Within minutes, the children were inside the alien vessel. The interior was dark and warm, filled with strange smells that made Maya's stomach turn. They were placed in a containment cell with walls made of hardened organic material. Through a small window, Maya watched Kepler Station shrink as the ship lifted off and flew toward the Armada above. The flagship of the Zoroth fleet was called a Devourer. It was commanded by High Collector Vareth, an ancient warrior who had lived for over 500 cycles. Vareth had collected specimens from 300 worlds. His personal gallery contained the last living members of 17 extinct species. He considered himself an artist, and the galaxy was his canvas. When Maya and Leo were brought before him, Vareth studied them with great interest. He had never collected human children before. Adult humans were too dangerous to keep alive, too clever and too violent. But children could be conditioned and controlled. They could be taught to forget their origins and serve the Zoroth cause. Maya glared at the High Collector with all the hatred her young heart could hold. She refused to show fear, even when Vareth's advisors suggested immediate processing. Something in her eyes made the ancient collector pause. She reminded him of the adult humans he had encountered in battle long ago, the ones who had killed 3 of his ships before retreating, the ones who never surrendered. Meanwhile, across the void of space, a single message reached a patrol fighter near the asteroid belt. The message was short, transmitted by Administrator Chen in her final moments before the station fell silent. It contained only coordinates and 3 words that would change everything. Marcus Cole received the message. He read it once, then again. His face showed no emotion, but his hands began to shake on the flight controls. Not from fear, from something far more dangerous, that the message said. They took them. In that moment, the man called Ghost disappeared. What remained was something older and darker. A father whose children had been stolen. A warrior who had once made an entire empire beg for mercy. And now, that warrior was coming for the Zoroth Armada with nothing in his heart but cold and absolute fury. The Zoroth had made a terrible mistake. They had taken the wrong children, and they had no idea what was about to find them in the darkness between stars. The Confederation military base on Luna 9 was the most heavily defended installation in human space. It housed the command center for all colonial defense operations and served as home to the elite squadrons that protected humanity's borders. When Marcus Cole's fighter screamed into the hangar at speeds that shattered safety protocols, every officer on duty knew something terrible had happened. Marcus climbed out of his cockpit before the landing systems had finished cycling. His face was carved from stone, showing nothing of the storm raging inside him. He walked past the maintenance crews and security personnel without saying a word. His boots echoed against the metal floor with a rhythm that sounded like a countdown. Admiral Sarah Hendricks was waiting for him in the command center. She was an old friend who had served with Marcus during the border wars. She had seen him at his worst and his best. But the man who walked through her door was someone she barely recognized. His eyes held a darkness that made her blood run cold. The intelligence reports were already on the table. 7 Zorath collector vessels had attacked Kepler Station. 43 colonists killed, 112 captured. Among the captured were Marcus Cole's 2 children. The Zoroth fleet was last tracked moving toward the Nell Zone, the lawless region between Confederation space and the outer territories. Marcus studied the reports in silence. Every detail burned itself into his memory. Ship configurations, weapon systems, patrol patterns. The Zoroth Armada was powerful enough to threaten small planetary systems. No single fighter could challenge such a force. The smart move would be to request fleet support and plan a careful rescue operation. Admiral Hendricks began explaining the protocol for hostage situations. Diplomatic channels would need to be opened. Negotiators would be contacted. A task force could be assembled within 2 weeks. She spoke with practiced calm, outlining each step of the official process. Marcus interrupted her with a single sentence. He told her he was going alone. The Admiral tried to argue. She reminded him of his duty to the Confederation. She pointed out that a lone fighter against 7 capital ships was suicide. She asked him to think about what his children would want him to do. But Marcus was no longer listening. He had already calculated his approach vector and ammunition requirements. Before leaving the command center, Marcus accessed the classified archive. He downloaded tactical data on Zoroth vessels that dated back to the first contact between their species. He studied their weaknesses, their command structures, their cultural practices. The Zoroth respected strength above all else. They believed themselves to be the apex predators of the galaxy. They had never encountered a human starfighter in direct combat. That was about to change. While Marcus prepared for war, Maya and Leo faced their own challenges aboard the Devourer. High Collective Roth had ordered them placed in the specimen gallery alongside creatures from dozens of other worlds. Their cell was larger than before, but still a cage. Through the transparent walls, they could see other prisoners. Some were humanoid, others completely alien. All wore the same expression of hopeless acceptance. Maya refused to accept anything. She spent every waking hour studying this. She memorized the patrol schedules of the guards. She noted which sections of the ship were more heavily defended. She asked questions of the other prisoners, learning what she could about Zorath technology and customs. Leo tried to be brave like his sister, but fear often overcame him. At night he would curl up against Maya and whisper questions about their father. Would he come for them? Did he even know what had happened? Maya always told him the same thing. Their father was coming. Nothing in the galaxy would stop him. She believed it with all her heart because she knew things about Marcus Cole that even the Confederation military did not fully understand. She had seen her father wake from nightmares, screaming names of people he had killed during the war. She had found the hidden compartment in their home where he kept medals and commendations that he never talked about. She knew that the quiet, gentle man who made breakfast and helped with homework was only one version of her father. The other version was something that made entire species afraid. High Collector Verith visited the children on the 3rd day. He stood before their cell with several advisors, studying Maya and Leo like interesting specimens. He spoke through a translation device that turned his clicking sounds into broken human language. He asked them questions about their planet, their culture, their military capabilities. Maya answered with silence and defiance. When Verith asked about her parents, she looked directly into his compound eyes and told him her father would find them. She said he would come for them no matter where they ran. She promised that the Zorath would learn the meaning of human vengeance. Varath found her words amusing. He had conquered species far more powerful than humans. His armada had destroyed battle fleets and orbital defenses. What could one human father do against such might? He ordered his advisors to begin preparing the children for processing. They would be separated and conditioned for service within the Zorath hierarchy. Back in human space, Marcus Cole finished his preparations. His fighter was an older model called the Wraith, a vessel designed for deep penetration missions behind enemy lines. It was fast, nearly invisible to most sensor systems, and carried enough firepower to threaten ships 10 times its size. But the Wraith was also temperamental, requiring constant adjustment and perfect piloting to reach its full potential. Marcus spent an entire day performing modifications. He installed additional fuel cells for extended range. He upgraded the weapons systems with experimental ammunition designed to penetrate organic hull plating. He programmed the navigation computer with multiple approach routes to the null zone. Every detail was perfect because his children's lives depended on perfection. The night before departure, Marcus sat alone in the hangar. He held a photograph of Maya and Leo, taken during a vacation on Earth 2 years ago. They were standing before the ocean, laughing at something off camera. It was the last time all three of them had been truly happy together. He made a promise to that photograph. He would bring them home. He would burn every Zorath ship that stood in his way. And when High Collective Rathath understood what he had done by taking those children, the ancient creature would know a fear deeper than anything in his 500 cycles of existence. The Wraith launched at midnight. It slipped past patrol routes and monitoring stations without triggering a single alarm. Within hours, Marcus Cole was beyond Confederation space, flying alone into territory controlled by pirates, slavers, and worse. None of them noticed the ghost that passed through their systems. None of them knew that death was traveling toward the null zone with quiet determination. The Zorath Armada continued on its course, completely unaware of the hunter that followed. High Collective Riath reviewed the day's collections and planned future expeditions. His crew maintained their vessels and prepared for the next raid. Life aboard the Devourer continued as it always had for centuries, but in the void behind them, gaining distance with every passing hour, a single human fighter cut through space like a knife through darkness. And aboard that fighter, a father counted the moments until he would hold his children again or die in the attempt to reach them. Galaxy was about to witness something that would become legend among spacefaring peoples for generations to come. The Zorath just did not know it yet. The null zone was a graveyard of dead ships and abandoned stations. Thousands of wrecks floated in the darkness, remnants of wars and disasters stretching back centuries. It was the perfect hunting ground for a ghost. Marcus Cole brought his fighter into the debris field and killed all active systems. The Wraith drifted like another piece of wreckage, invisible and patient. He had tracked the Zorath Armada for 5 days. The alien fleet moved slowly, stopping at various points to scan for resources and potential targets. They were in no hurry because they feared nothing. Their confidence would be their weakness. Marcus studied the Armada's formation through his sensors. The flagship Devourer held the center position, surrounded by 6 escort vessels. Each escort was heavily armed and carried hundreds of soldiers. The flagship itself was a fortress, protected by layered shields and point defense systems, capable of destroying missiles before they came close. A direct assault would be impossible. Even the greatest starfighter in history could not penetrate such defenses through force alone. But Marcus had not survived the border wars through brute strength. He had survived through patience, cunning, and a willingness to do what others considered insane. He waited until the Armada entered a dense asteroid field for mining operations. The Zorath deployed collector drones to harvest minerals from larger rocks. Their attention focused outward, searching for threats among the floating mountains of stone and ice. Nobody watched for danger from within their own formation. Marcus activated the Wraith's engines at minimum power. He slipped between asteroids with movements so precise that his ship seemed to dance through the chaos. Years of combat experience guided his hands on the controls. Every adjustment was perfect, every calculation flawless. He approached the nearest escort vessel from its blind spot, hidden by the interference of mineral deposits. The first strike happened without warning. Marcus launched a single modified torpedo that attached itself to the escort's engine section. The explosive was designed to burrow through organic hull material before detonating. The Zorath crew had 3 seconds of confusion before their engine room became a tomb of fire and shrapnel. Alarms erupted across the Armada. The damaged escort vessel began spinning out of control, its navigation systems destroyed. Emergency signals filled all frequencies as the Zorath tried to understand what had happened. Their sensors showed nothing. No enemy ships, no attack signatures. Nothing but an asteroid field and one crippled ally. High Collective Wrath ordered immediate defensive formation. The remaining 6 vessels pulled together, their weapons searching for targets that did not appear. Minutes passed without further incident. Some officers suggested the damage might have been an accident, a collision with an undetected asteroid. Others were not so sure. Marcus was already repositioning. He had used the chaos to move closer to the second escort, approaching from beneath while the crew watched the stars above. His second strike targeted the shield generators. 3 precision shots from his main cannons punched through weakened armor plates where his sensors had detected structural vulnerabilities. The second escort lost its protective shields. In the cold mathematics of space combat, a ship without shields was already dead. Marcus confirmed this by putting 4 more shots through its bridge section. The vessel went dark, joining its companion in the growing field of debris. Now the Zoroth understood they were under attack, but understanding did nothing to help them find their enemy. The Wraith was designed to be invisible, and Marcus piloted it with skill that bordered on supernatural. He moved through the Armada like a shadow, appearing only long enough to deliver death before vanishing again. Aboard the Devourer, High Collector Vareth watched his fleet suffer losses that should have been impossible. 2 escort vessels destroyed in less than 10 minutes, no enemy detected on any sensor system. His officers argued about explanations while their comrades died in the void. Some whispered about curses and vengeful spirits. Others demanded that the Armada flee while there were still ships left to flee with. Riath silenced them with a gesture. He had lived through hundreds of battles and faced enemies that his young officers could not imagine. He recognized what was happening even if they did not. Somewhere in the darkness a human warrior was hunting them. Not a fleet or a squadron. A single human with enough skill and rage to threaten an entire armada. The High Collector ordered his ships to abandon the asteroid field. Running was not shameful when facing an enemy you could not see. Better to reach open space where their superior numbers would mean something. The 4 remaining escorts and the flagship ignited their main engines and began pushing toward clearer territory. Marcus followed them into the open. He could not allow them to reach a populated system where they might take more hostages or receive reinforcement. The battle would have to continue here, in the emptiness between stars. He accepted this reality and adjusted his tactics accordingly. The 3rd escort died when Marcus flew directly at it during a shield frequency rotation. For exactly 2 seconds, the ship's defenses were vulnerable. He put everything he had through that window. 16 shots that turned the forward section into melted debris. The vessel broke apart as he passed through the explosion, his shields flaring but holding. Now the Zoroth saw him. Sensors finally detected the Wraith as it emerged from the fireball of their destroyed ally. Weapons turned toward the small human fighter. Thousands of shots filled space with green fire. The escorts and flagship unleashed everything they had, creating a wall of destruction that nothing could survive. Nothing except a ghost. Marcus flew through the barrage like water flowing around stones. His movements defied logic and physics. Shots that should have connected passed through empty space where his fighter had been moments before. He rolled, dove, climbed, and twisted in patterns that pushed his body to the edge of blackout. Pain meant nothing. Fear meant nothing. Only his children mattered. The 4th escort focused its fire too narrowly, trying to predict his movements. Marcus used this against them. He flew straight at the ship's main cannon array, pulling up at the last possible moment. The escort shot itself, its own weapons cutting through armor meant to resist external attacks. 3 escorts down, 2 escorts remaining. The flagship watching with growing horror. Maya felt the ship shake around her cell. She heard explosions in the distance and the screaming of alarms in alien languages. Other prisoners pressed against their transparent walls, wondering what was happening. Guards ran past in panicked formations, no longer concerned with the specimens in the gallery. Maya knew exactly what was happening. She grabbed Leo and held him close, telling him to stay calm. Their father was here. Their father was coming for them, and nothing in the galaxy would stop him now. High Collector Wrath made a decision. He ordered the 2 remaining escorts to maintain distance from the flagship while he prepared the Devourer's main weapon. It was a device he had used only twice in his lifetime. A beam of focused destruction capable of annihilating anything smaller than a moon. The weapon required time to charge, but once it fired, no pilot alive could dodge its reach. The escorts obeyed their orders, placing themselves between the flagship and the demon that hunted them. They spread apart, trying to create a crossfire zone that would catch the human no matter which direction he approached from. It was a solid tactical decision from experienced officers. Marcus appreciated their skill, then he killed them anyway. He attacked both escorts simultaneously, using the chaos of rapid maneuvering to appear in 2 places almost at once. A torpedo for one, cannon fire for the other. His aim was perfect because perfection was the only option. Both ships suffered critical damage within seconds of each other. Both began their death spirals into the void. Now only the flagship remained, the Devourer, the pride of the Zoroth collective fleet, floating alone against a single human fighter. High Collective Wrath watched the small vessel approach on his display screens. The main weapon would be ready in moments. It would reduce this human to atoms, and then continue his work as if nothing had happened. But something in his ancient heart felt cold for the first time in centuries. He was looking at a predator more dangerous than anything his species had ever created, and he realized, perhaps too late, that the Zoroth were not the apex hunters they believed themselves to be. There were humans in the galaxy, and some humans were nightmares given form. The Devourer's main weapon hummed with gathering power. Energy crackled along its spine as ancient technology prepared to unleash destruction. High Collector Verath watched the charging indicators climb toward maximum. 30 seconds until the human fighter would cease to exist. 20 seconds. 10. Marcus saw the weapon powering up. His sensors detected the energy buildup and calculated the firing angle. He had perhaps 6 seconds to act before the beam would end everything. 6 seconds was more than enough. The Wraith accelerated to maximum speed and dove directly toward the flagship's underbelly. Verath's weapon could only fire forward, and the tracking systems were too slow to follow such a close target. The beam discharged into empty space while Marcus's fighter slipped beneath the hull like a fish diving under a whale. He searched for what he needed and found it quickly. Every Zoroth vessel had maintenance ports along its lower sections, openings designed for external repair drones. These ports were protected by magnetic seals but not by weapons or heavy armor. Marcus adjusted his approach and fired a concentrated burst that blew one of the ports wide open. Air rushed out of the breach as the Wraith pushed its way inside. The fighter was too large for the maintenance corridor, but Marcus only needed it to carry him this far. He sealed his combat suit, checked his weapons, and climbed out of the cockpit into the howling chaos of decompression. Emergency systems kicked in before he could be pulled back into space. Organic barriers grew over the breach, sealing the corridor within seconds. The Zorath ship was healing itself, but that healing had trapped an enemy inside. Marcus moved through the maintenance tunnels with deadly purpose. His suit sensors showed him the layout of the ship, marking the location of life signs and energy signatures. The specimen gallery was 3 levels up and half a kilometer toward the bow. Between him and his children stood hundreds of Zoroth soldiers, security systems, and whatever surprises the High Collector had prepared. The first patrol found him in a junction between primary corridors. For Zoroth soldiers, each carrying energy rifles designed to stop armored vehicles, they saw the human and hesitated for one fatal moment, confused by the impossibility of an intruder aboard their flagship. Marcus did not hesitate. His pistol fired 4 times before they could raise their weapons. More soldiers came. Alarms filled the organic corridors with sounds that hurt human ears. Doors sealed ahead of him while reinforcements rushed to intercept. The entire ship was mobilizing against a single invader. It should have been overwhelming. Marcus had faced worse odds during the border wars. He had cleared enemy positions with nothing but a knife and determination. He had survived wounds that should have killed him and returned to battle before his doctors approved. The Zoroth were powerful warriors, but they had never encountered anything like a human starfighter in full combat fury. He moved through the ship like a storm. Every corridor became a killing field. Every defensive position became a grave. He used their own architecture against them, the narrow passages limiting how many soldiers could engage him at once. His combat training gave him advantages that no Zoroth could match: human reflexes, human endurance, human creativity in dealing death. High Collector Wrath watched the slaughter on his command displays. He saw his soldiers fall in groups of 3 and 4. He saw security checkpoints overrun in seconds. He tracked the human's progress through his ship and felt something he had not experienced in 300 cycles. He felt fear. The creature carving through his forces was not behaving like a rescue operative. There was no attempt at stealth or negotiation, no demands or communications, just relentless forward movement toward the specimen gallery, leaving bodies in its wake. Broth understood then that this was not a mission of recovery. This was extermination. Maya heard the gunfire growing closer. She pressed herself against the cell wall, shielding Leo with her body while trying to see what was happening. Guards were abandoning their posts, running toward the sounds of battle. Other prisoners began screaming or cheering, sensing that something unprecedented was occurring. A Zoroth commander entered the gallery and approached their cell. He carried a weapon pointed directly at Maya's chest. His orders were clear. If the human reached the gallery, the specimens were to be terminated. No leverage could be allowed. The children would die before their father could save them. Maya looked into the alien's compound eyes without flinching. She told him that killing them would only make her father angrier. She promised that their deaths would not save anyone aboard the ship. She spoke with a calm that surprised even herself, drawing on courage she did not know she possessed. The commander hesitated. He had seen the reports from the corridor battles. He knew what was coming for them, and he realized that the girl was right. Killing the children would not stop the human. Nothing would stop him now. Before the commander could make a decision, the gallery door exploded inward. Marcus Cole stepped through the smoke and fire with his weapons raised. His combat suit was scorched and damaged. His face was visible through a cracked visor streaked with blood that was not entirely his own. His eyes found Maya and Leo instantly. The Zoroth commander tried to turn his weapon toward the new threat. He never completed the motion. Marcus crossed the distance between them faster than any creature should be able to move. His hand caught the commander's throat and squeezed with strength born from rage and love, and the desperate need to protect his children. Other guards attempted to intervene. They died where they stood. Marcus had become something beyond a soldier or a fighter. He was vengeance made flesh, and nothing organic could stand against him in that moment. When the last guard fell, silence filled the gallery. Marcus stood among the bodies, breathing hard, his weapons still ready. Then he heard a voice that made all the violence worthwhile. Maya called out to him. She pressed her hands against the cell wall, tears streaming down her face. Leo was crying beside her, reaching toward their father with desperate need. Marcus lowered his weapons and moved toward the cell. His hands found the control panel and forced it open through sheer determination. The cell wall dissolved. Maya and Leo rushed into their father's arms. He held them so tightly it hurt, but none of them complained. For one perfect moment, the war paused. A father held his children and the universe felt almost right again. But the moment could not last. High Collector Vreeth's voice echoed through the gallery speakers. He congratulated the human on a remarkable performance. He acknowledged that the Zoreth had underestimated human capabilities. Then he informed Marcus that the ship's self-destruct sequence had been activated. If Wrath could not have the specimens, no one would. The Devourer would die, taking everyone aboard with it, human Zoreth and the collected prisoners from across the galaxy. Varath was willing to sacrifice everything to deny his enemy victory. Marcus looked at his children. He looked at the other prisoners still trapped in their cells. He thought about the Wraith wedged in the maintenance bay, probably damaged and possibly unable to fly. The odds had been against him from the beginning. Now they seemed impossible. But Marcus Cole had spent his entire career doing impossible things. He was not about to stop now. He told Maya to hold Leo close. He told them both that he loved them more than anything in existence. Then he handed Maya his backup pistol and pointed toward the maintenance bay. If he did not return in 15 minutes, she was to find a way off the ship without him. Maya wanted to argue. She wanted to stay with her father and face whatever came next together. But she saw the look in his eyes and understood. He was going to find Verith. He was going to end this threat permanently. And he needed to know his children were moving toward safety while he finished his work. She nodded and took Leo's hand. They ran toward the maintenance bay while their father turned in the opposite direction, toward the command center, toward the ancient creature who had made the mistake of threatening his family. The hunt was not over yet. The command center of the Devourer was a cathedral of organic technology. Curved walls pulsed with bioluminescent light. Control surfaces grew from the floor like strange plants. At the center stood High Collector Virith, surrounded by the last of his personal guard. His ancient form towered above his soldiers, decorated with trophies from 500 cycles of conquest. Marcus entered through the main door without slowing. He had killed his way through every obstacle between the gallery and this room. His ammunition was nearly exhausted. His suit was failing. His body screamed with pain from wounds he had not stopped to treat. None of it mattered anymore. Varath raised one of his 4 arms in a gesture that might have been greeting. He told the human that the self-destruct countdown continued regardless of what happened in this room. Victory was impossible. The only question was how Marcus chose to spend his final minutes. Marcus responded by shooting the nearest guard through the head. The other guards opened fire, filling the air with green energy. Marcus dove behind a control console, feeling the heat of near misses burning through his suit. He returned fire with precision that dropped 2 more enemies before his pistol clicked empty. He threw the useless weapon at another guard, using the distraction to close the distance. His combat knife found gaps in Zoreth armor. His fists broke through exoskeletons that should have been impervious to human strength. Rage and adrenaline made him faster and stronger than his body should allow. The last guard fell with Marcus's knife buried in its primary brain cluster. Only Varath remained, watching the human warrior with something approaching respect. The ancient collector acknowledged that humans were more dangerous than any species he had encountered. He admitted that taking the children had been an error in judgment. Marcus asked where the self-destruct controls were located. Vareth laughed, a clicking sound that filled the command center. He explained that the sequence could not be stopped. He had designed it that way precisely to prevent scenarios like this. The Devourer would die in 8 minutes, and nothing could change that outcome. Marcus attacked. He was exhausted, wounded, and unarmed except for his bare hands. Virith was ancient, powerful, and armed with 4 sets of claws that could cut through steel. The fight should have been short and decisive in the Zoreth's favor. But Marcus Cole was not fighting for himself. He was fighting for Maya and Leo. He was fighting for the chance to see them grow up, to watch them live the lives their mother would have wanted for them. That motivation gave him strength that transcended physical limitations. Virith struck with all 4 arms simultaneously. Marcus dodged 3 attacks and caught the 4th, twisting the limb until chitin cracked. The collector screamed in pain and surprise. No creature had ever injured him in personal combat. His confidence shattered along with his arm. They struggled across the command center, destroying consoles and tearing through organic surfaces. Brath used his size and strength advantage. Marcus used speed and a human's terrifying ability to ignore damage. Green blood and red blood mixed on the floor as both combatants suffered wounds that should have been incapacitating. The self-destruct countdown passed the 5-minute mark. Somewhere in the maintenance bay, Maya and Leo were trying to activate the Wraith systems. The fighter was damaged but not destroyed. If they could get it flying, they might escape before the explosion. Marcus thought of his children as Wraith's claws tore through his suit and into his chest. The pain was incredible, worse than anything he had experienced in 2 decades of warfare, but he did not fall. He used the moment when Varotha's arm was extended to grab the collector's head and slam it against a control surface with all his remaining strength. Varotha's compound eyes cracked. His ancient mind, which had witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations, began to fade. He asked the human how this was possible. How could one member of such a young species defeat a being who had conquered worlds? Marcus leaned close to the dying collector. He whispered that Vareth had made a simple mistake. He had taken a father's children and expected that father to behave rationally. Humans were not rational when their families were threatened. Humans became something far worse than any predator the galaxy had ever seen. Vareth died with those words echoing in his broken mind. Marcus let the body fall and turned to the control systems. The self-destruct sequence showed 3 minutes remaining. His eyes scanned the organic interfaces, searching for anything that might help. He found the prisoner release controls first. With a series of commands he barely understood, he opened every cell in the specimen gallery. Hundreds of captives from dozens of worlds were suddenly free. Emergency evacuation protocols activated automatically, guiding them toward escape pods throughout the ship. Then Marcus found the communications array. He broadcast a message on all frequencies, warning every ship in the sector about the imminent explosion. Any vessels that might have attempted to approach the Devourer would now keep their distance. 2 minutes remained. Marcus staggered out of the command center and began running toward the maintenance bay. His wounds slowed him terribly. Blood left a trail behind him that painted the corridor in crimson. His vision blurred and his legs threatened to give out with every step. Maya saw her father coming through the maintenance bay door. She screamed for him to hurry. Leo was already strapped into the Wraith's passenger seat, a space that was never designed to hold 2 children. The fighter's engines were warming up, coughing and struggling but functional. Marcus collapsed into the pilot's chair. His hands found the controls through muscle memory rather than conscious thought. The Wraith responded to his touch, recognizing its pilot even in his damaged state. Thrusters fired, and the fighter launched from the maintenance bay with 90 seconds remaining. They cleared the Devourer's hull with 40 seconds to spare. Marcus pushed the engines beyond their safety limits, putting distance between his family and the dying flagship. Maya held Leo close, both children watching through the rear display as the vessel that had been their prison began to glow with internal fire. The explosion was silent in the vacuum of space but spectacular in scale. The Devourer broke apart in a cascade of secondary detonations that spread across kilometers. Escape pods carrying freed prisoners scattered in all directions, carried away from the blast by their emergency thrusters. The Zorith Armada was gone. 7 capital ships and their flagship destroyed by a single human father who refused to abandon his children. Marcus set course for the nearest human outpost. The Wraith limped through space at reduced speed, its systems failing one by one. He did not have the strength to repair anything. He could barely keep the fighter flying straight, but he kept going because giving up was never an option. Maya took over navigation when her father started losing consciousness. She had watched him fly hundreds of times and understood the basics. Leo helped by reading instrument displays and calling out warnings. Together, the children guided the damaged fighter toward safety while their father drifted in and out of awareness. They reached Outpost 12 after 6 hours of desperate travel. Medical teams were waiting when the Wraith touched down, alerted by Maya's distress calls. Marcus was pulled from the cockpit and rushed to surgery. His children were taken to a separate facility for examination and treatment. The next 3 days passed in a blur of medical procedures and debris. Marcus survived surgeries that should have killed him. The doctors said his wounds would have been fatal for any normal person, but human starfighters were not normal people. They were engineered for survival in ways that even modern science did not fully understand. When Marcus finally woke, Maya and Leo were sitting beside his bed. They had refused to leave despite the medical staff's suggestions. They had held vigil over their father, waiting for the moment when his eyes would open again. He reached out and took both their hands. No words were necessary. They sat together in silence, alive and reunited against all odds. The story spread across the galaxy within weeks. A single human had destroyed an entire Zorith Armada to rescue his children. The collective fleet that had terrorized hundreds of worlds was gone, eliminated by a father's love and a warrior's skill. Species that had lived in fear of the Zorith suddenly looked at humans with new respect and new caution. The Zorith Dominion never sent another collective fleet into human space. They had learned a lesson that would echo through their civilization for generations. Humans were not prey to be collected. Humans were predators of the highest order, and human parents protecting their children were the most dangerous creatures in existence. Marcus Cole retired from active service after recovering from his injuries. He took Maya and Leo to a quiet planet far from the borders and trade routes. He built them a home near an ocean that reminded him of Earth. He spent his days watching his children grow strong and happy, knowing that he had given them a future worth living. Sometimes at night, he would stand on the beach and look up at the stars. He remembered the battles and the blood and the terrible things he had done. He wondered if the ghosts of the Zorith crews watched him from wherever their spirits had gone. but then Maya would call him inside for dinner, and Leo would show him some new discovery from the tide pools.